At least 2.3 million players have made this opening mistake, making it the most common one. Today, I'll show you how to avoid this error and capitalize when your opponents make it. Let's dive into some common opening positions. For example, after 1, e4 e5, we reach a 4 knights game. Here's a question. What do you think about the move 4? bc4? Is it good, bad, or just an average developing move? Since I'm asking, you've probably guessed there's a catch. And you're right, while bc4 is the most popular choice for white in this position, it's actually a mistake. Interestingly, most black players fail to exploit it, often responding with a symmetrical move. Bishop c5, which just gives black, about equal gain, but bishop c4 is actually wrong. It fails due to a common tactical pattern that, again, people so often overlook. Let me flip the board so that we see from the black perspective. The tactical pattern here is the move knight takes e4, which gives up the knight just for a second because, after white recaptures it, you then play pawn d5, and thanks to this fork, you get your piece back right away, and you often get a quite noticeable advantage right after that. The beauty of this combo is that it works in various different openings. Not just in this position. You can use it as white or as black, just because this current setup is so common. Right as soon as your opponent has the knight here and the bishop here, you can always think of this combo, and it usually works. Again, you can use it for white or black in different openings. So, in this video, I want to share with you why it is so advantageous for black to go for it instead of just, playing normal developing moves. And what are the different ways for white to try to react here and how you can get an advantage there. In most cases, your pawns will counter. Here, you're going to play pawn d5, and now your opponent is going to start thinking what to do about this threat. The easiest solution to, avoid just losing a piece seems to be capturing here on d5. And that is a wrong move, although it's the most played move here because, after queen takes d5, you just get a completely dominant position. It's all that black can dream of in an opening. You took the center, you have the pawn, you have your queen here attacking this knight, you have 2 active bishops here controlling the entire board, and white just has nothing. So, basically, this is already a strategically winning position. For example, if white defends the knight, plays something like d3, and you just bring your bishop out here to g4, creating one more problem for white, this pin. And if white develops somehow, castles or develops their bishop, you also can castle queenside. Because now your rook is also kind of active here along this d-file, and, again, you have such an easy game. Here, this pin is always annoying for white. You can play knight d4 and, put more pressure onto this knight. You can play f5 and strike in the center, attacking this knight over here on e4. So, you have a very simple attacking game here, and, again, white has nothing. For that reason, I said that black has already a strategically winning game right here. Now, let's see what else your opponent can try doing here against you when you capture this pawn and unleash these little tactics. Knight dx e4, pawn d5. Again, your opponent starts thinking hard about what to do and how to save material. One idea that your opponent may come up with is playing bishop b5, removing this bishop from danger. After you capture the knight, white can now take advantage of this pin and play knight takes e5. Actually, at first, it looks pretty cool for white, right? White is now taking advantage of the pin and taking this knight twice. It looks like white is attacking, but, in reality, there is a way for you to counterstrike in a very effective way. These pieces, both minor pieces, are somewhat hanging. They're not defended sufficiently enough by white. Well, they're not defended at all, I've got to say, right? And you can take advantage of this. There are 2 common moves here for black to play. One is queen d5, just with a double attack on these 2 pieces, and this is good enough. That already gives you an advantage. But in this position, there is another move which is even stronger. Instead of a double attack, you can have a triple attack here. After queen g5, not only do you still attack both of these minor pieces, but you also hit this pawn on g2. Which makes it completely impossible for white to defend all 3 targets at once. I've just checked in the database what white players usually do here, and they usually go down very quickly. They take your c6, you recapture it, and it still keeps this double threat. So, if the knight captures here, now you take this pawn on g2. And now your queen is in close proximity to white's king. It also hits this rook, and it is over. After the rook moves, you have a lot of ways to win the game. Really, any meaningful move wins. You can play bishop h3, for example, going after this rook, that would win. You can hit the rook from the other side with bishop a6, that would win as well. I guess the easiest is to play bishop g4 because now, this is the arrow, because now the queen is captured, so you can capture white's queen. Actually, White would have to play something like pawn f3, and then you just recapture with your bishop, and it is still completely over for white. The next one is my favorite. After you play this move knight takes e4, starting these little tactics, some of your opponents will scratch their heads a little bit, start calculating variations, and figure out that after knight takes and pawn d5, they're going to lose this bishop anyway. So, they'll think, hey, let me play this in between move, bishop takes f7. And I'm gonna outsmart black. After king takes, I'm gonna take a piece back, and now just look at this exposed king. That's how I outsmart black, who tried to use this tactical trick against me. But that is a completely wrong idea. That's the only drawback of this brilliant calculation because, after you play pawn d5, once again, you just get everything you want. You took the center, completely have these beautiful pawns, still have two bishops that are extremely active and enjoy easy development. Although white can give this one check, it is just a single check. And the attack is over. Your king is completely safe here, there is nothing white can do against it. On top of all the other advantages you have, white is now also having problems with these two knights because they are somewhat hanging. You want to play e4, for example, and hit this knight. If that knight goes away, you're going to pick up the other one. You can also play pawn h6 and drive this knight to the edge. So, both knights are in trouble. For example, if white plays something like pawn d3 to stop this pawn from pushing forward to e4, then you can play h6. The only square for this knight to go to is on the edge of the board. Knight h3. Once again, you can play bishop g4, putting in this pin, which is unpleasant for white, and white is completely stuck and paralyzed. White is also worried about you taking here and breaking their pawn structure, especially if they want a castle. If not, what can they do? Also, this pin is annoying. You can always play knight e4 or knight d4 and attack this knight. Once again, I've checked the stats, and in most cases, according to the database, white played the move knight h2 gram1, which clearly indicates that white is in trouble because it took so long for white to relocate the knight from one bad square, b1, to another bad square, g1, like dancing all around. That is just insane. You can just strike in the center and win with e4. Once again, very simple. The knight can't move because of this pin. So white will have to take and recapture, still attacking the knight. In order to escape from this pin, white will need to trade the queens off, but that brings your rook to an open file. The knight is still attacked and has to go back because it also has to guard against rook d1 checkmate potentially. So, the knight will have to go back, and after that, you can just go forward with knight b4 or knight d4, and there is no defense against knight takes c2. It's not just a pawn. Here, you're going to fork the king and the rook. And white cannot defend it. So, you're winning the game once again in a very simple way, just within several moves. That's the beauty of this combo. In many cases, you get such an easy victory right after that. Is there any hope for white? Yes, there is. Let me show you the correct reaction for white so that, if somebody uses this trick against you, you know how to react. After black plays knight takes e4, when recaptures and black goes pawn d5, here is the key. You do not want to lose your bishop because the bishop is stronger than a knight overall, especially in open positions. So, you want to lose your knight instead of the bishop. For that reason, white has to play the bishop back to d3, letting the knight be captured. After that, white saves the bishop, which gives white an approximately equal position. That's how white should play. But luckily for you, most of your opponents are unaware of this. And they're going to go in one of the wrong ways we discussed previously. By the way, this is still not completely easy for white because, after bishop d6 and the following moves, you can perhaps castle, and you can still play bishop g4, putting in this pin. In some variations, you can maybe push f5 forward. So, it's still not easy for white, though you've got to be careful. But, objectively, the position is equal, and white can keep it equal with proper play. That's how white should deal with it. Thanks for watching and subscribe the channel.